while we're talking about Maui, the real island of Maui has had a rough time with the wildfires, and they're trying to recover. So if you can, any bit helps. So we're trying to raise some funds for Maui relief. Lance, who are you, my friend? Have you figured out your purpose in life?
Ask me again tomorrow. I might know. It changes every day.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
For those
Yeah.
who don't know me, my name is Lance McCarthy. My day job is I'm a manager at Progress Software, the same company that Sam works for, and I cover the United States technical support. So if you ever have a problem, my team answers your questions and then gives you demo code or fixes your bugs or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, that is my passion. I absolutely love digging in the code, finding the problem, looking at stack traces, and then that feeling of rejoice and it just works after you click start debugging or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what keeps me going every day.
Lance is amazing, and so is his team, because I cannot imagine some of the things that you folks have to dive into. So anything you are using from us, Telerik or Kenda UI, is that mostly what your realm is, or do you do also other things?
We do everything underneath the dev tools.
Okay, so that's a lot. So any issues you have, support, you come to us, and Lance's and his team are the first layer that tries to answer you. And Lance does things officially for customers, but he does also a lot of things for internal usage, where stupid people like me have to call up Lance and say, I'm stuck and I don't know what I'm doing. So Lance is a huge help and just knows everything about everything, been around forever. So thank you for what you do, Lance.
It's just as rewarding seeing you not fall off the stage, knowing we did our job right.
Oh, Lance is making an inside joke because I'm old, and again, we have failed in a lot of ways. I have fallen off the stage. I like to walk around, and I'm glad when conferences give me like a flat thing, because I cannot fall off a flat thing. But anytime you give me a podium, I have the risk of falling off the podium.
To be real though, it's these things that make us good. Right. This is how you get to where you are. And for anyone that's struggling right now, just look at that as another scratch on your board of mistakes. So.
Yeah. I think somebody has a video of it somewhere. Like I was talking, I was like really engaged, and just like poof, just took a tumble in Europe of all places. So it's great. Yeah. So anyways, Lance, let's bring up your desktop here if you're ready. Telerik UI for .NET MAUI. What is this thing? Is this just something we cooked up yesterday, or has it been around?
Well, I mean, without going too far back and going very deep, .NET MAUI itself, it might seem like it's been around a long time, but it's really only been like a year and a half, right, since people have been able to use it. And the amount of effort and time and development has gone in is extremely compressed. And I think our UI component suite is a good example of that. Because by far, definitely not the only one. And I'm here to talk about some of the new stuff and show the shiny. But if you actually take a step back and it's like, wow, November 22 was when Maui went GA. It hasn't even been a year, and yet I can use it in production apps now. And with .NET 8 coming, like someone said earlier, that I think it was Dan that said that .NET 8 is pretty much, I can recommend it for production enterprise apps, and I happen to agree with them there.
Well said. And before you start though, Sean, yes, falling off a stage is what I was talking about. And Maddie, who happens to be your neighbor, is jealous of your tan, because Lance spent a lot of time in.
I just got back from Cancun, so she's like, I know where you were. But I didn't get burned this time. Last time I got a really bad burn because I fell asleep on the beach without sunscreen on.
Oh boy, yeah. All right. So I remember the very first time we came out with like 0.0.1. It was like May 2022, like with the earliest previews of .NET MAUI. So even like for us, it's been a long journey to come up to 6.1.0 is the latest. And the team's been hard at work, and it's a unique challenge for us. It's an opportunity and a challenge. Same with .NET MAUI. But for the first time, you can take a Telerik data grid and just assume that it works seamlessly across mobile and desktop, which is a huge challenge to pull off. So yeah, our folks have been busy.
And there's so many different aspects to it. It's not like if you have one platform, you can make it work well on that one platform. But everything has its own unique nuances, and the way things render there are a little different. When you're making controls, like if you're just using .NET MAUI by itself, or you're using one of our controls, you don't really have to worry about that because we did that hard work for you. But yeah, the data grid is a great example of that. We have just introduced a new details row feature. Like we released the data grid so people can get a data grid right away, but there's so much that can go into one: grouping, filtering, layering, formatting, footers, headers, all that kind of stuff that takes extra work. So instead of delaying it, what we did was we gave you the data grid working out of the box with your standard grouping, filtering, and sorting. And then now we just added in some of the new extras, such as the details row. You click one of the records and expands, and you can put whatever content you want inside that row, even another data grid, right? So you could have like turtles all the way down kind of scenario until your computer runs out of memory.
And actually, that's not too far from reality for a lot of enterprises. People do put grids and charts
Yeah.
inside other grids and charts, but it's needed. And what Lance is talking about is the fact that when you drop a grid like this in a desktop app, your users have a very different sense of entitlement and a set of requirements that are very different from having a mobile data grid. So it just all has to work.
Yep. And for each platform, even they might have a split desktop mobile experience. For example, Android, right? You can do, it works great too, by the way. I've done this a couple days ago, where I have a Samsung Fold and just a regular closed screen data grid. I can slide through it, I tap and I filter, and then I open up the phone. And now it's the full, 6x7 or whatever it is. And it's still kind of the mobile feel, but then I plugged it into my monitor, and now Samsung Dex gets enabled, and it becomes a desktop. And inside the desktop app, I could use it like a typical desktop data grid.
Right.
So the promise that Windows Continuum did before it fizzled out. And we're talking about the data grid because that's the most common kind of thing an enterprise needs. But we have some large enterprise customers who are using MAUI in their production apps, financial institutions, medical institutions, and they usually come to us with more suggestions like, I would like this, and we'll prioritize those over others. But the baseline is we're trying to take all of our experience and dev chops for the WPF controls, right? We have hundreds of controls and features over there, and bring them into the cross-platform .NET MAUI world. And the idea behind it is that we really want these people who have these legacy WinForms and WPF apps who would like their app on Mac OS to do that. And that's where we see a lot of the initial interest, is that it's like, oh, I have this app. It's already even in XAML already. And I have some idea how to do the layout, and I just want it to work on Mac. So they can start there, and then all of a sudden they have a desktop app on both. And then they might consider mobile after, or may not. But for the most part,
Right.
we want to give you that solid desktop experience, whether you're using desktop or mobile,
Yeah.
and vice versa. If you want mobile, we'll give you a solid mobile experience. And if you want
Right.
desktop, you can add it later.
Yeah, and as you start talking, like Foolish Navel is talking about it in the chat, like data grid is the thing for so many apps, and this is not far off from reality for what most enterprises needs. Like lots and lots of data, lots and lots of columns and grids, and child elements that are opening up. And again, your data grid should be able to handle all of that. Like things should be virtualized, so
Yep.
you can still scroll smoothly.
Yeah, like just Fuel just mentioned, he needs these inline. We have inline editing, right? You tap on the cell goes from its regular display mode to an editing mode, and it swaps out the UI element into whatever that editor might be. It could be just a simple entry, text for entry, or it could be a drop down or a numeric or a date time picker. All of that in there works. And the reason why it works pretty well is because we don't try to render all of those editors at the same time. You only render the one that you need at that time, and then quickly switch to the next one. And we do have full keyboard support, by the way. So that user that does tab, enter, tab, enter, tab, enter, it works that way. And the
Yeah.
columns are virtualized and the rows are virtualized. So it doesn't matter if you have, 10,000 rows. We're not actually rendering 10,000 rows. As you're scrolling, we're taking that container that just went off the top of the screen, minus a buffer or about 10 or 20 or so. And then we recycle that UI element in the bottom and use it for something else that gets scrolled into the screen. So you're really only staying with a nice low memory limit, and you have as many data rows as your data needs.
Yeah, well said. Another, I mean, there are lots of cool things that we try doing. So, like the .NET MAUI team with us, we tried doing, 3 to 4 big releases in a year, but in between we'll, push out, service updates. Lance, pull up the. Oh, you got the new what's new. Yeah, let's cover this, and then I'll talk about a couple of really cool things that are new and that I really like.
So just to, if you have never been on the What's New page, we basically break it down by release. You can see over here, it's like, oh, what came out in R2. So we have 6 kind of releases a year. We have R's, and there's 3 of those. They're release numbers, and they're approximately every 4 months away, 3 to 4 months. In between them, we have another one that's a service pack and called it SP. So you might have R2, SP1, which means we release 2 in that release cycle. And they usually come with significant bug fixes and new features. And every single time, whatever's there, we make sure you guys get it. And we'll put it up on this page, like what's new. Over here on the right, you have a little sub menu. There's actually so many features in R2 or features and controls that you actually have to scroll the sub menu for all the new stuff. But as you can see, we say new component. We have a calendar, a PDF viewer, a rich text editor. Right, this is your full-fledged. What you see is what you get. It's backed on HTML, so you can export it and import the content that's in your editor. Rad conversational UI. This right here is surprisingly in high demand for enterprise. So enterprise uses a conversational UI very frequently.
Who would have thunk? And I mean, this is
Right?
agnostic, so you can plug it to whatever, be your chatbot in the background, ChatGPT, or any of
Yep.
the, Lex or any of the other chatbots, and it just gives you all the UI pieces, all the drop downs, all the little things that you need to build the chat.
Yep. And on top of like the default pickers, or we call them cards, right? So you have your regular bubble for text, and then you might have a card that has photos, like this travel assistant bot or day picker or whatever you want. It's basically just an IEnumerable behind the scenes. So whatever your data is, it'll just work. So the calendar, this is one that we just released. You might be thinking like, why wasn't it there in the beginning? It's because we rewrote it from the ground up. So this is brand new from scratch on the latest tech that's available to give you the best performance. In our roadmap, we have a scheduler plan that should be coming very soon. The scheduler is where you have your individual appointments like you see in Outlook.
And this is not for the faint-hearted. It looks very, simple on mobile, but the calendar is big business. It's very tricky to have the same calendar just work seamlessly across iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. So we wrote this, from scratch.
And PDF viewer, there's another example of like, where is it? How would you open a PDF in your app? You typically wouldn't. You would actually pass it to whatever your device's web browser is and ask the web browser to open it, right? And
But
now you can have anyone.
enterprise folks hate that because that's a change of context. Yeah.
Yep. Some won't even let you do it, right? The security sandbox for that particular thing doesn't let one app open another app. There's the rich text editor I just mentioned. All this content here is basically what you can render in a web page. Here's a very important popular one for enterprise and for consumer, the tree view. We actually are working on some new cool features for this. So this is a good example of, we don't just release something and that's the end of it. We have some very cool features coming up for this that empower some more heavy duty scenarios that use the tree view. But right now I see a lot of customers doing it for their own little file explorers. They want a custom file explorer that iterates over the file system, for example. Or here you have it in your email app. And your slide view, right? Your typical navigation that just changes views from left to right, or you can skip and you can programmatically scroll them and change the orientation. We both support horizontal and vertical orientation. This is another one where we built it from scratch again. Like we didn't take it from our Xamarin suite. We actually started and used the native .NET MAUI components, and then on top of that, we have our own custom drawing libraries to make things a bit faster or to fit certain scenarios for us.
Hey, Lance, before you go on to the next one, let's try to answer Full Schnabel's question here on the PDF viewer. So the PDF viewer, Full Schnabel, is called a PDF viewer for a reason. It's meant to be lightweight, so it just lets you open up a PDF and go to town. If you're actually looking to edit PDFs, and I mean, Lance, you can pull up the docs maybe if you want, but we have whole libraries. We have a separate .NET library called the document processing, and that features editing purposes or editing functionality for Word, spreadsheets, and PDFs. So you have absolutely all the rights to change up whatever you want in your PDF, and it'll render pixel perfect. And that's also already a part of .NET MAUI, so you can absolutely edit PDFs.
Yep, you just can't do it in the PDF viewer
in
itself.
the PDF viewer itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And in reality, not a lot of apps let you do that. Like Adobe's original, like I think it's Acrobat, or there's like one app that it does there. But for the most part, folks don't edit inside like a rich text editor. What you can do is you can use a rich text editor and build out whatever you want it to be, and then you can export that directly into a PDF file.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And with the PDF processing, you can import and export the PDF into different formats, right? So basically, you take that PDF file and you import it into a PDF document in memory, and that PDF document has this model where it has, labels and images and signature components and all this kind of stuff, and you programmatically manipulate it to whatever your needs are. Whenever you're done, you export it back to a PDF file, and then you can show it in the PDF viewer. Matter of fact, I have a demo that if we do have time to get to you, is like I have this custom MAUI examples repo on GitHub. It has a lot of these custom scenarios that they use our controls or they may not use our controls, but there are scenarios that people are asking for that isn't really met by a particular one thing. For example, using a backend service to put notifications on top of a tab view, or a view agnostic pop-up service. So anywhere in your application, just kind of like what Gerald was showing earlier with a pop-up that can be like a what's it called? A snackable?
Snack bar.
Snack bar, that's it, yeah. Right. So those kind of things, this you can put your custom UI in it. So let's say you wanted to build your own custom keyboard or your own custom whatever. Whatever you want can go in there, and then you can pop it up anywhere in the app from anywhere, view model or service. Signature editor, this is where you can sign a PDF document, for example. You can take this and then you can insert it into the PDF document. The most common scenario for the app is here's a PDF, sign it, and then send it back to us. And that's exactly what this demonstrates.
Yeah, no, this is very cool. I dropped a link to your GitHub repo, and then custom MAUI examples where people can find it.
Yeah, you can just scroll through it. There's too much here for me to explain in a half an hour on top of the other topics. But printing, this is the perfect example where there's no .NET MAUI API for it. But in reality, it's kind of easy to do. You just got to know how to do it. And this demo shows you how to do it. And then right inside my demo, all you have to do to print anything, here, let's go to main page real quick. There's a button on main page that says print. And basically, this is it. This is all you have to do to print from it. And it works on all 4 platforms. So the only difference is one likes a stream. So we just use a little bit of ifdef to send the stream or the file name. But and the helpers are here. And I separate the code so it's clear which one goes to which one. But they're the same class. So in here, all you have to say is new print helper, print. And you're done.
Oh, nice. Somebody was asking me about printing. I didn't know you had this in your example.
It's kind of a hidden secret at the moment because I have the larger Xamarin helpers repo, and I'm still building this out. For example, like this custom, what do you call that again? Legend. right? And that legend is like a little its own view with different labels and checkboxes, so you can add and remove charts from the different charts in different series dynamically. It's a bunch of those kind of custom scenarios. Here's an example. We don't have a .NET MAUI report viewer, but we do have an HTML5 report viewer,
Yeah.
and we have a WinUI report viewer. Why not bring them into MAUI? And that's what I do here.
Yeah, the reporting thing is kind of done because we have a modern web view, so we can embed whatever we want
Exactly.
inside of reporting. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
this
there's
is
even
very
a
cool.
gRPC demo here. Like
Oh,
if you want to
look
know
at
how to
that.
do, yeah,
I
and a
need
bunch
to
of
check out
little.
this repo. We got so much of cool things in here.
And of course, ping me if you have any questions about it. I'm always available on Twitter. Happy to help. And if you have an
Or
idea
X
that's
now.
not here, yeah,
So there are a
or
couple of
Microsoft
things.
Teams.
Yeah, a couple of things that I wanted to showcase that are really nice. So if you start with the docs here and go to the docs for the data grid, some like little things that you don't always think of but are so needed when you're building like a true enterprise grade desktop application. So in the column types or the columns there, if you want to filter in, we did something called frozen columns, like second to last. This one here, go down, frozen columns. So this is so nice for mouse and desktop users. You can keep one or multiple columns frozen, and then you can scroll. So full Schnabel, like if you have 200 plus columns and your users don't want to lose track of something, it's heavily requested for a lot of the desktop users. And a grid should be full featured. Like if you drop a grid in your app, you are trusting us with years of engineering to pull off all of these things, so you don't have to worry about all the different grouping UI and filtering UI, sorting, imports, exports, loading on demand, and different types of commanding support. All of that is just done for you. Keyboard navigation, that's it's big. Yeah.
And we try to
And
make it
then
as easy as possible for you as a developer to use it. So to get frozen columns, it's just a Boolean on the column.
Mr. Boolean.
To highlight it is frozen and you're done. That lets you build your UI on top of it. Like let's say you wanted a checklist on the right that freezes columns that way. All you have to do programmatically is find that column and then set this to true or false.
Yeah. And Lance, if you just tap on the demos up on the very top on the nav, yep, just anywhere or on the very top on the demos. Yep. So you don't have to trust anything that Lance is saying. Lance is pretty trustworthy here, but try it for yourself. This is where devs get to see where the rubber meets the road, and instead of trusting us, go take a look at this. So we have two apps that are actually in the app stores: iOS, Android, Windows. And you can go and Mac as well. You can go try out, look for Telerik. You're going to end up on the Xamarin samples or this sample here. This is an app that has all of our UI just jammed together into one app, just so you can see how the UI renders. And we also give you the code that you can actually peruse through within the app itself, or it's also open source, so you can get to the code. So this is the control sample, and then we have a SDK browser app. This is more kind of like the how-to, like how do I do this as a dev, that type of a scenario. And then I really also love the crypto tracker app. Again, in this day and age, maybe you may or may not want to invest a lot in crypto, but this is just a demo. And what I really like about this is, and you see that in the control sample as well, that .NET MAUI gives you the shared code base. So you have your .NET or your C# or XAML or Blazor, and you want that in the same code base that's rendering for iOS, Android, Windows, and Mac. But desktop and mobile are very different stories, right? You have to have different experiences that light up. Just because you have the same code base doesn't mean it should be the same. So I don't know if you like this, Lance, but the crypto app just renders, just reuses its views between mobile and desktop. So you're not reinventing anything. It's just the navigation is a little different between desktop and mobile. So, cutting down on the users or the developers' effort and just reusing as much of the views as possible between desktop and mobile.
Yep. And this is a commonly asked type of application UX where you have a data grid or a list and you want a chart associated with the selected item. And this demo shows you how to do a lot of that. Yeah, this is financial data, but you can substitute it for anything like population data or sales data.
Right.
Did he just ask if it tracked live data?
No FTX, and so it's more
No.
on the jokes.
If you still have one, you can export the data and
Yeah. Oh boy. So yeah, we've been busy. Like Lance and me were saying, like the first 1.0.0 of Telerik UI for Maui was November 8th, 2022, and it's not been that long, honestly, for .NET MAUI as well as for us. But it's just quick iterations and how far we have come. We're up to like 6.1.0. Yeah, 60 plus. And again, we just like the .NET MAUI folks, we started up with a heavy emphasis on mobile because that's the natural evolution coming from Xamarin. But we did a pivot and we supported .NET MAUI customers who were building desktop first apps, and that's a whole other set of demands. And these are folks who are coming from WPF or maybe other older Windows technologies, and they have very concrete set of very high expectations because this is desktop, and all of your Maui UI just has to work on desktop.
Data table, I think, is a good example. A lot of applications that were for legacy desktop apps use the data table object and not like a more modern observable collection, for example. And our data grid will accept a data table object as its item source. You don't have to convert it into a collection or do anything. Out of the box, it'll support it, including editing. So,
yeah. And while the big things like grids and charts, those are the obvious things you benefit. Like it's hard to think about engineering all of that. It's sometimes like the tiniest of things that get you. Like Lance probably has experience building like those little pickers and combo boxes. Those are painful to build the correct way across all platforms. So many different types of pickers that they're all done for you.
one thing that is also rebuilt from the ground up is the data form.
Mm-hmm.
What you can do is you can just give us your data model, right? Your class of product, and then we will create all the editors for you. And then whenever the user changes anything, that object that you bound to it, the way you set all of its editors is the binding context, like you do for any other data binding. And when they're done, your object is updated. You can get that saved data and then use it somewhere else. So that's probably one of the best examples of saving time. You don't have to build out the individual form, and it just works.
Yeah, because I mean, so many apps are forms over data. A lot of enterprise apps, and this is just an easy way. You don't have to build up the view. We can inspect what your data is, do reflections, and figure out the right editing controls. And then you can also do like validations and different types of commit modes. Yeah, you can do path, you can draw. I know our good friend Sean is also waiting in the chat room, and drawing on canvas is a whole different ball game with .NET MAUI, and there's a lot of help.
And like you mentioned, there are little things that you don't know until you need them. This is where stuff like our path, you can draw what you need. Something I use very, very frequently is the border control.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout its corner radius and styling, I get nearly any shape to hold my object, and it gives me the result I want. For a good example of that is one of my custom controls for a floating label, right? There is no other floating label, but you see this right here, how this little product code comes up. I created that border.
Oh, nice.
And like, I'm not kidding, 15 or 20 minutes of, finagling, and then it's there. It's because of the wrap border.
Yeah. Try doing that from scratch because it takes a lot of effort getting that bordering right. Yeah.
Well, right. I don't want to overrun into someone else's time. So the big takeaway, everyone watching, just ping me if you have any questions about any of this. Go and check out Telerik UI for Maui. Trial is always free. There's no obligation. You even get support. You get technical support with my team during a trial. So if you run into any issues, just open a ticket, and then we'll help you out in every way we can.
Oh, well said, well said. Lance, thank you so much for everything that you do to make our customers successful. Engineering is never expensive. Like Maddie talked about this as well. Like truly well engineered frameworks, tools, and components take a lot of effort, and to stand by them and to support people who are using that takes a lot of effort too. So thank you for what you do.
Back at you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for
Thank you,
having me
thank
on.
you. All right. And so, Lance, we're going to let you go. And I see our next guest here. Bye, Lance. And Sean, if you're ready, I'm going to bring you in. Hey.